Hello, everybody. Subscribers, viewers, criticizers. Nice to see you all tonight. Tonight we got a really special guest on. I mean, this guy's pretty cool. We got Claudio Polanco, or Claude, um, and we're gonna discuss some things that Claude, would like to talk about, where he came from, and I think we'll have a lot of interesting conversations going on. So without further ado, Claude, please, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit.
How you doing, yo? I'm Claude. I go by the name Claude Davis. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to come here. I'm from Jersey. Also grew up a little bit in North Carolina. I just wanted to come and share some of my experiences as a fellow Native American, formerly Hispanic.
I like that. Formerly Hispanic.
I like that you're formerly Hispanic too. It's very good. I I feel that that word continues to get tossed around so much through American media,
Oh, absolutely.
politics, and when someone like we were talking about earlier, like when someone says Hispanic, it can be anybody. So for example, if you have you know Mexico or another native country. And if we want to bring in someone that's Hispanic in the U.S., it can be like the lightest skinned person, but that doesn't represent the entire population of a country.
Right.
Watching a really interesting video about high school debates. No, a debate at a high school involving international students. And one student was South African, he was white, and then the other three students were from other African countries. And they were saying, why is it that, and this was during the apartheid, this was in the 1950s. Um, and one of the African students was saying, why is it that in South Africa, there's 12 million, blacks, 3 million, I guess we call them whites or Afrikaners, I'm not sure. But all of the political positions were mostly ran by non-black Africans. And he wanted to know why that was. So I feel that with representation of Hispanic Latino, what we see in the media, what the American media likes to give to us in some cases is that they show us the lightest looking so-called Hispanic Latino. And that really
Yeah.
is a lot of the majority representation of a country. You could say the United States as well. Um, so yeah, man, that's very interesting that you said that. I like that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Um, but Claude, you're from New York, so why don't you tell us a little bit about growing up in New York City and what that was like there, or New Jersey? Sorry.
So yeah, I'm actually from New Jersey, from right, like literally right outside of New York. Like anybody who's from tri-state area knows, like Hudson County, New Jersey, basically is New York. In fact, if you know your history, you know that lots of parts of Hudson County, like Bayonne, West New York, North Bergen, where I live, all used to be a part of New York City, and that's why a lot of the architecture is the same, and a lot of the road systems are the same, and that's why it's so connected. It's just that bordering, and it's all the same land, but bordering. That's why technically. But anyway, sorry, I go off on tangents a lot. But anyway, yeah, I was born out here. I was born in Teaneck, New Jersey, but I grew up in North Bergen, which, like I said, is basically New York, Hudson County. But then I also grew up, like I said, in North Carolina. I moved out there when I was pretty young, but I spent a lot of time out here in Jersey, so I really kind of like was back and forth. But yeah, Jersey's awesome, man. I love it. It's very diverse, but out here where I live is a lot of natives, so it's pretty awesome to be surrounded by my own people out here.
I'm always jealous of the options that you have for food compared
Oh
to where I'm
man,
from. I'm just a Midwestern, guy hanging out here, but I'm sure in New York, in New Jersey, you're really close to New York City, so it must
we got
be
the best pizza.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
you guys do. I visited for a week in New York, and oh my god, it was great. Really
Yeah,
enjoyed the
once you
city, man.
once you have a slice of pizza from out here, you can never go back. Domino's, Papa John's, like come on, man, they don't even compare. It's not even close.
doesn't compare to the deep dish Chicago pizza.
I've never had a deep dish from Chicago. I've always wanted to. Like I've had like imitation, like the New York, you know what I mean? The New Yorkers try to do it out here, but it doesn't look anything like what I see when I see like Chicago pictures or like what a deep dish looks like out there. I'm like, damn, I want to. That shit looks fucking crazy. I want to try that. It looks so
Yeah, I'll
good.
have to try it one day, man. You come out to Chicago.
Yeah, man. One day. That's definitely on the bucket list for sure. Is to go to Chicago and try some deep dish with some sausage.
It'll be worth your while. I was
For
gonna add
sure,
on
man. My favorite artist of all time is from Chicago, Kanye West.
Kanye West. Oh, you're a big Kanye West fan.
My favorite artist of all time since I was like 5 years old.
I like some of his songs. I recently saw like a couple of videos of him on YouTube. Like YouTube has a really strange algorithm, like random stuff popping up. And there was like a 5-second video of Kanye West with someone like interviewing him, asking him, "Hey Kanye, what's your favorite part about being a parent?" And Kanye said, "The kids," and then it stopped. So
That's a very Kanye answer, yeah.
yeah,
But
definitely.
that's what I love about Kanye, because that's like the same type of answer that I would give. I've always felt like me and his minds are so similar. That's why I love him so much.
He's definitely a very interesting man, I will say.
Yeah. I always felt like I was the only one who understood Kanye growing up. Like when he would act out, like I understood it, why he would act out.
Yeah. Yeah, I like well now I think he just broke off with Kim Kardashian, so now he's
Yeah.
like
They just divorced.
a bachelor again. I guess you could call him that.
New album.
I liked Kanye. His songs were always good. I listened to him when I was growing up.
Yeah, man. Legend.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, going back to New York, before I wanted to bring up New York, I saw the cool posters that you have behind you.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I really like that one with the guitar. I feel like I've
That's
seen that before.
Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain. That's it. Got it.
And you can't see it, but above that I have the Beatles. I have a bunch of posters all over. I got Jim Morrison over here. I got Jimi Hendrix. I have Wu-Tang Clan right there. I have one of Post Malone. I got one of Billie Eilish. I got Michael Jackson. Like, yeah, I'm a music head if you couldn't tell.
Oh, I like it, man. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about your songwriting that you have going on, man. You know, you like to write songs. I see.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I was gonna say I see the ukulele in the corner.
Yeah, that's I got that I bought that ukulele because I don't know about you guys, but I look at the Pacific Islanders as Native Americans too, since most of those islands are owned by America anyway, and they look like us. I mean, so I kind of consider them. So that's kind of why I bought that. I wanted to learn it. But yeah, I make music full time. I'm an artist. I started out as just a rapper, but now I'm like I do everything. I sing, I make my own beats, I play guitar, I play bass. Now I play ukulele. Tomorrow I'm actually getting a set of bongos. It's supposed to be coming in the mail, and I'm gonna learn how to play those. I even play a little bit of some ocarina. I got this from my grandmother from Chile. So I play a little bit of this too. So yeah, no, I'm very passionate about music. I actually put music out all the time. I'm actually working on an album right now that I'm hoping to have out by June. Um, so yeah, music is pretty much like my main passion. My full time, like I'm trying to make it my full time career.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I can relate on being passionate about like artwork or like just art in general because all of that kind of goes under the umbrella of art. Like I'm a
Of
writer
course.
myself, so that's my thing.
Oh
But
really?
music is yeah. I got several articles published, a science fiction book published.
Ooh,
But yeah,
man.
writing's my thing, so I can relate to like you got passion for a craft, you know,
Right.
like and that's music, and that's
It
really
flows
important.
naturally. Like when that creative juice starts flowing, like it's natural for you. It's like it's second nature. You know, people who try to make music or try to draw or try to come up with something creative, they can't do it if they don't have the passion for it. If they're just trying to seek monetary gain, like you gotta have that love.
I agree. Yeah.
True. So you've lived in New Jersey, New York. How would you say is like what do you see in type of environment where Native people are starting to, break away from the Latino Hispanic, you know, identity, you would say?
Yeah, man. So ever since I've come to this realization that I'm actually Native American and I'm not Hispanic, I've been asking a lot of my friends around me, like, oh, what do you identify as? Like, if I asked you what your race was, and they were like, oh, I'm Taino. I'm like, whoa. A lot of my friends, it turns out, a lot of my friends around me are very well aware of the fact that they're indigenous. My grandfather was very well aware of the fact that he was indigenous, and so yeah, a lot of the people around this area, there's a mix, you know, because then you have some, like I know some Dominicans who are like, oh Jesus and this and that, and they believe that they're Dominican and that they're Hispanics or whatever, and I'm just like, you people are so sleep. No, but a lot of the people around me are very, yeah. Like I asked my best friend Sway the other day, you know, we were talking about it, and I was like, "Do you know of your native history?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know that I'm, you know, he's Ecuadorian. He's like, "Yeah, I know that I come from the Inca tribe," and I was like, "Oh, okay," you know, and so. And I actually also come from the Inca, you know, I got family from Chile. So when he told me that, I was like, oh shit, look at that. We come from the same tribe. And I felt more connected with him. I was like, dude, we're like cousins almost. And then same thing with my guy. I want to give a shout out to my guy Kibo Hidi, especially because he, you know, he adopted that name Kibo Hidi, which is a Taino name, and he doesn't even identify as Hispanic or Native American. He just identifies as Taino, which I wholeheartedly respect, because I know there's a lot of Native tribes out here in the United States, like the Navajos, who they don't identify as Native American or American Indian. They just identify as Navajo. And so the fact that my boy Key, who is of Puerto Rican descent, doesn't identify as Hispanic or Native American, just solely Taino, I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Me personally, I don't mind Native American just because it's easier when people ask, oh, what are you? Just to say Native American. But I respect, you know, him being Taino, because me, I come from a bunch of different tribes. You know, I come from the Mayans, I come from the Tainos, I come from the Incas, and there's a little tiny splash of Navajo, like 2%. But you know, so for me, it's hard to kind of just pick one. So it's easier to just be like, I'm Native American. But then when we get into it, I'll break it down like I just did, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. If you ever get into really in-depth genealogy, and you trace a lot of ancestry to one tribe, maybe you'll want to identify one side eventually. But right. Just saying umbrella term like Native American is perfectly fine. It's a good racial unifier, because we need that umbrella term because like a lot of our arguments off race, just like how black people are black people, you know what I mean? We've heard these types of arguments before. So identifying off races is important, and the tribe, I would say, is secondary. You know, you got to first realize you're Native before you can even go try to entertain the thing about tribes. And we've had haters, you know, they'll get into this, they'll like, oh, well, you don't have a tribe, and it's just like no other race on this planet needs a tribe to be a race, like except us, which then that doesn't make any sense.
Ask a white person like, yo, do you know where you come from in Europe? Because there's a lot of white people who just think they're American. But like, yo, do you know if you come from the Vikings, or you come from the Romans? Do you come from Germans? Do you come from Englishmen? Like, where do you come from? And they'll be like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, all right, so you don't even I can at least tell you I come from the Mayans, and I come from the Incas and the Tainos. You can't even tell me if you're from fucking England or Poland.
That's something
right.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, just to compare this, like, also to add on to that, is like requiring us to have a tribe to be Native American is like telling a white person you need to know what Scottish clan you come from in order to be white.
Exactly.
Makes no fucking sense.
Doesn't make any sense at all. Like I could tell you this, man. Look at my parents. Look at my people. Look at us. Do we look like we come from Spain to you? Do we look like we come from Africa? You know. But then look at the natives. How many times do you see? I remember I seen a picture one time of a bunch of Native Americans. I think it was Cherokees, or maybe it might have been Navajos. I don't remember, but they were by Mount Rushmore, and they were all giving the finger to the Mount Rushmore. And then somebody commented like, "Oh, you see, they want to come into our country so bad just so they can disrespect us." And then they responded to the picture like, "We're not Mexicans, we're Native Americans." And it was like, you see, even the natives from the United States get mistaken for Hispanics. So that's why we need to kill this shit, because it's not just us. Do you know how many fucking actual Navajos, Cherokees, because these are who the white people consider the real Native Americans. Even they get, you know, I've seen videos of white women telling like, you know, Native people, well, you know, there's this video, I think they were Navajos, and they were telling them, go back where you came from, go back to your country. A white woman told that to an, and then she tried to claim that she was Cherokee or some shit. She was like, I'm Cherokee. And she's like, why don't you go back to where you come from? And it's like, yo, where do I'm already like, I'm like, yo, but that's the ignorance. They even think that the natives here are fucking Hispanics.
Right, and dude, that right there, that story just brings that sense of urgency to this mission that me and Marcus are on to get people to identify as native. Because if you don't fucking do that, you have white people that steal that. Now they become the originators. Now we all are scum. We're all illegal scum, and they somehow become the original inhabitants because they're part Cherokee. When enough fucking percent DNA blood in them, of native DNA blood in them, and they're fucking saying they're Cherokee, and people. Like I was so brainwashed back in high school. I actually, oh my god, like this is about to piss me off. So there's this guy. He was a piece of shit to me all the time. Racist little fucker. All right, so he would freaking say all sorts of shit like illegal and all that. And one time he told me, "Oh, I'm Native American, like Cherokee or whatever." And I was so brainwashed back then that I was like, "Oh my god, like fuck, like I like oh shit, like you know, I like because back in high school, like I barely gotten my my visa, so I had been illegal up until I was 15 years old. So I was like, man, this guy could really tell me to get the fuck out of here because he's Native American. And it's like that's a white guy with maybe a percent, probably not even a percent, telling that to some 50%, and the 50% is so brainwashed. That was me that I'm getting intimidated by that. That's the level of fucking insanity that we've reached. And so that's why that right there. I mean, I just get worked up, man. Because our people just don't realize like you guys are pissing away everything, all the heritage we have. You're just pissing it away by fucking not embracing it.
No, and I actually have a story that's really similar to that. I had a neighbor, and he was a good person, somewhat. Like he wasn't, like nasty with us, but he was a friend. We used to hang out, have barbecues, have drinks or whatever. But white dude, I'm talking blonde hair, green eyes. The dude looked like he could have been like Irish, and I'm pretty sure he was Irish. Like I'm pretty sure but then he was one of those dudes who would say that he had a Cherokee great grandmother or whatever. And I remember one time, and I was so young and brainwashed that I remember one time he was talking about that. And mind you, this dude was like a super patriotic white dude, right? Like, I mean, you see a lot of that in the South, I'm sure. In Alabama, you see a lot of that, because in North Carolina, I saw a lot of it. And this dude, I mean, like, had the American flag. I mean, he was a super like patriotic American, right? And so he would say that he was Cherokee. And when he would say that, I would, because he was a friend, I was like, oh, that's so cool. This guy, he's a real American. Like, and I was jealous. I was like, but then you look at us, it's like, come on, who looks like the real fucking native? I look more Cherokee than this fucking dude. And I'm like, and then once I realized that, and then once I started watching your podcast and I heard you guys talking about all that, I immediately thought of him and was like, that motherfucker was not Cherokee, bro. That motherfucker was not like if you look at a picture of him, that dude had bright green eyes, blonde hair. Like, no, man, there's no way in hell you're gonna tell me that you're Cherokee.
I'm part of these Native American groups like on Facebook, and there's one. It's like more of a Northern Native American group because I can't tell you the amount of white people in that group that say that they have a Cherokee great grandmother. It's always Cherokee, or the amount of people that get on these they get on these genealogy pages, man, because I follow a lot of these genealogy pages, and they're white people, and they're like, well, I did a DNA test and it said I was 0% native, but my family, they swore that we had a Cherokee great grandmother. And I'm just like, it's because it's all a myth, dude. It's commonplace. Like, I don't know why they all have this myth.
Do you know about, because I actually just found out something the other day, because like apparently there actually is some truth. There's an explanation to the reason why some people are so like, oh no, but I had a Native American great grandmother. Like, why is there no DNA? And the reason is because, before the reservations happened, the western part of the United States was Indian territory. And so because of that, there were certain people who were considered as American Indians just because of the fact that they were born in Indian territory. So, but these were white European descendant people, but they were living in Indian territory. So because of that, they were given over time, it created a confusion. So even though you had these people who were completely 100% European, no native DNA, but they were born in Indian territory, the story got passed down as if they were American Indians. And that's why you have a lot of people who are like, no, but I know for sure. It's not even, in a lot of cases, it's not even like, oh no, but I really, like they're just trying to capitalize on us. It's like, oh no, they genuinely thought that I was native. I've heard it in my family forever. but that's why, because of the white people that were born in the Indian territory back when it was Indian territory.
Hey, that I've never heard of that. That is that's a pretty interesting explanation. So that explains some of it. I mean, I think the other part of it is just folklore. Like everybody wants to claim to be original that way.
I mean, there's obviously some of that. There's definitely that. You definitely have people who want to claim it, but a lot of them are. It was just like, you know, there was a confusion. You know, like kind of like how we think we're Hispanic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it's just dangerous though, man, because like I said, if most of our people just don't wake up, like that's going to be weaponized to where it's just going to be perpetually weaponized. I always thought I was illegal scum for 15 years because I was brought here illegally, and I was made to feel inferior. I was made to hate my skin color. I would write down white as the race on the boxes, not because I was really convinced I was white, but because I was like, if I write it on this fucking box, I'll be white, you know, and then I'll stop getting so much shit. So it's insanity, this whole thing.
I'm glad you ways on. I mean, checking the box is what I'm talking about. But Claude, I wanted to ask you, so there are a lot of Dominicans in New York City, correct?
Yeah.
So, and I'm always really curious if like the Hispanic, so-called, you know, Hispanic Latino culture itself is more common with people from, you know, the islands, the Caribbean islands, as far as like the Dominican Republic, Cuba, then so like the Central America and South America, you know, where our ancestors originate from, because, you know, the Spanish eliminated a lot of natives on those islands. So I could see how that culture would be more common there.
Right.
But then when we look at like now, currently in 2021, like with people, you know, coming from the Dominican Republic and other Caribbean islands, that sort of culture is more looked at as, I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting thought. I realized.
Right.
But
so, from what I've noticed, like as far as like Dominicans or like, you know, Puerto Ricans or people from the islands, a lot of the younger people are starting to become more, you know, aware of their native heritage and are starting to become more embracive of their native culture, where a lot of the older, you know, are still kind of holding on to that colonial mindset. They don't want to let that go. Like in my family, you know, a lot of my cousins are actually aware of their indigenous roots and are choosing to embrace them, whereas their grandparents are like, oh, you know, our family is from Europe, we're mestizos, we're razas. Like I've heard them use those words, you know, and it's just, and every time they do, I just roll my fucking eyes. like, but I'm not gonna argue with them, because it's like, you know, I try not to argue with the older people, because it's like, you know, when you reach a certain age, you become so stubborn that it's like, I'm not gonna argue with you, you know, I'm not gonna be able to change your mind. So I'm not even gonna, like, you seem so proud of something that you're, you know, whatever. You seem so proud to be something that you're not. So whatever, go ahead.
That's how I was going.
Proud of that. Be proud of that. If that's what makes you happy, you know, that's fine. But you know, a lot of the younger people, I've noticed that, like in general, not even just like with the Dominicans and with the Caribbean people, even with Central Americans and with South Americans, like I said, like a lot of my friends, you know, like they're all starting to kind of realize, like, oh wait, we're not Hispanics. A lot of them have known longer than me. They're like, wait, yeah, no, we're not Hispanics. We're Native Americans. You know, I have friends who fill out on their applications that they're American Indian and not Hispanic. I have some friends who do both just because they don't want to be given problems, like because they'll go on with a name like Anchundia, and you know, and then they'll put down American Indian and not Hispanic. They'll be like, oh, but your name is Anchundia, you know, so how are you not Hispanic? And so certain friends like that. So some friends of mine like to put both. Me personally, I like to just stick with American Indian, just because like I think we need to just completely eliminate the Hispanic and Latino. Like, I feel like we could still keep Latino for like people from Latin America. Like, fine, you know, you want to embrace that, but don't look at that as your race. Just to me, being a Latino is like me being a New Yorker. Like, if you ask me about my race, I'm not gonna tell you I'm a New Yorker. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, how stupid that is. But like, I'm not Native American. I'm a New Yorker. Like, you know how stupid that sounds, but then that's exactly how you sound when you say I'm not Native American, I'm Latino. Because I mean, I know black
Yeah.
Dominicans. I know a lot of black Dominicans who will be like, "Oh, I'm not black, I'm Dominican," you know, and it's like, but Dominican's not a race. Like, okay, you can be Dominican,
Right.
that's cool, but dude, you have nappy hair, you have dark black skin, you have, you know, African features, like large lips, like, and a broad nose. Like, I'm sorry, dude, you're not white, you're not Dominican, you're not whatever you think you are, you're black, you know.
Right.
Dominican is
Right.
just a nationality.
And some people get butthurt because they're like, well, the Latino term isn't inclusive, and like they want to invent a whole nother term to like, include all the other races from these countries. I'm like, you don't need to invent another term. They like a black Mexican still Mexican,
Right.
an Asian Mexican still Mexican. It don't fucking matter what race you are. The nationality stays the same. That doesn't change. So there's no need for all these like fancy little terms. Just say, oh well, I'm from this country and this is my race. It's really, really simple.
Look,
like,
I knew a black dude from China back in high school, and he would tell you he's Chinese, but he's dude. And the thing is that he was confused too, because it was funny because this dude, I mean, he was black, but would tell you he's not black, he's Chinese. He was born in China, but it's like,
Right.
dude, and that's cool. You can be Chinese, but you're black,
Right, like-
dude. You're not Asian. You don't have, Chinese eyes. You don't have, the light skin, that the East Asians have. Like, you're from East Asia, and that's cool, but you're not East Asian. Your people are from Africa, dude. That's why you look the way you look.
Right, exactly. Like he could say, hey, nationality wise, culturally, I'm Chinese, but racially, I'm.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't take away the fact of what you are racially. Like, so yeah, that's where. Like I said, we've had people that get all butthurt about us wanting to eliminate Latino because they want to stay in this category, and it's like you can still say you're from this whatever country you're from. Like that don't take away from it at all.
We almost
Right.
have to look at that as like neo-colonialism disguised as, some sort of extreme, like, neoliberalism in some ways, because, wanting to be more inclusive, but at the same time, that's eliminating like Native American, the identity of Native American by wanting to be more multicultural.
That's always been the case. They're
Yeah.
just continually doing that. They don't want us visible.
That's the question. Like, are they doing it knowingly? Because if they are, you're saying you're liberal, that means you're against, white supremacy, you're against colonialism, but you're doing the same thing to us.
I would like to think that they're just ignorant and they don't know the history. Like they don't know the caste system. They don't know what the Spaniards did, all the atrocities. They don't think about like how we're split racially. And so I think because there's not a big awareness of that history, that's why they act the way they do. Because I have faith that if they knew the whole history, they'd be like, oh, fuck no, like let's get rid of all that shit. But I think that a lot of these people just don't know.
I think so.
Right.
So they think they're being white knights in shining armor and fighting for social justice when really they're just fighting for oppression, continuous erasure of native identity. That's all they're doing. So they become like, to take a Star Wars quote, they become the very thing they swore to destroy.
Right.
When they do that stupid shit.
Well, and you say that you hope that they're doing it unintentionally, that they're ignorant, but me, I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I think that they know exactly what they're doing, and that this kill the Indian mentality is still very much alive, and this whole idea of getting rid of the native people on this land so this can be a paradise for the white people. I mean, there's colonization going on in Puerto Rico right now. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about the Puertopia project, where these white people are going to this port town in Puerto Rico, and they're trying to basically start a cryptocurrency system out there.
Yeah,
and I forgot all the details about it, but a lot of my Puerto Rican friends were sharing it, and I was looking into it, and it's pretty crazy. That like basically they're just trying to it's modern colonization, and the natives there are not happy that these people are coming and trying to set up their own lands and set up a brand new currency. It's literally what Christopher Columbus did, and it's famous social media influencers like Logan Paul and people like that. You know what I mean? Like all white, and it's like I feel like this whole genocide is not complete. And so they're trying to complete that genocide. And obviously they're not going to be out there about it and be upfront. I mean, remember, like Hitler took the Nazis to the concentration camps and had them think it was going to be all good. But in reality, he was going to put them in gas chambers. It's kind of like that, like obviously they're not going to tell us like, oh yeah, we don't want you here, but they're going to set up things that are going to divide us and essentially eliminate us.
And that's what you think the plan is. So
that's how I feel. Cause I mean, you look at me, and listen to the way I talk. I'm not an immigrant. I was born in New Jersey, but yet I was still treated like an outsider my entire life. So to me, it's like, I feel like that, no, they don't want us here. And they know that, we're the original people. And anybody that knows their history. I mean, I know people that know their history and still, like have this mentality like, oh, Indians should be happy that we put them on reservations. We saved them. I've met people who have that fucking mentality, and I'm like, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's like, it's not even a matter of educating them. It's a matter of like, okay, you're just hateful. You're definitely just hateful if that's how you feel. We should be thanking you. Dude, some of these reservations don't even have running water. What the fuck should we be thanking you for? We were living just fine until you came out here.
Right. One thing I've seen is like some Europeans like to just do excuses. They're like, well, it was a conquest and all this other shit. And it's like, I disagree. Like it was a conquest, but I always point out, like, you can't just excuse it by saying, oh, it was a conquest and just call it a day like it was any other war in world history, because it just wasn't it was genocide. Like, you systematically killed millions of people, burned their villages down, and made them fucking move. Like, so it's not just conquest, it's not just warfare. This was way beyond fucking conquest and warfare, and that's what a lot of people just don't want to acknowledge. They get all uncomfortable as soon as you bring up the fucking subject because they feel bad, I guess. But it's like they shouldn't feel bad, because it's like your ancestors did that. It's like, right. What you need to do is acknowledge it happened and stop trying to fucking erase that. That's all we're asking. We're not fucking asking for anything else, really. We're not asking you to fucking go to jail for 100 years to make up for the fact. Like,
right.
So,
no, all I want to see is just us to be able to, because like I got into a conversation with someone, and it's so funny because like I think it was Marcus who shared it. It was a video of about the Mapuche people and what was going on, and I had reposted it. And it's funny because it's like you guys say, it's always white people who want to speak out whenever we're trying to voice ourselves. It's always fucking white people that got something to say. The natives, fellow natives, black people are always all for it, but then the white people always got something to say. So this kid was basically trying to tell me like, oh, like if you're gonna come to this country, you need to respect the laws or respect the government, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, dude, this is our fucking land. We should be able to cross the borders as if they weren't even there. Don't tell me we need to respect the laws. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we should just go around killing people and murdering people. We do need law and government. But what about when the native people try to, the native Mexicans try to cross the border and then their children get taken away from them and put in cages? Most of them never get to see their parents again. And,
yeah. See, I recently had an argument with somebody over this, and I'm not for like obviously you have, with countries, you have economies, you've got finite resources. So like, why? I mean, I was brought here illegally. And I always say, look, like open borders, like the idea would be nice, but you would have so many people rushing in that we just run out of resources for everybody else. But this guy, what I couldn't stand though with this guy was he was just standing up on his high horse, like what you're mentioning, like, oh, well, my family was here legally and they're criminals and they're illegal. And he pissed me off so bad that I actually went there. I was like, no, dude, your family legal had nothing to do with you and your fucking family being here. Genocide and bloodshed and killing women and children is how you guys are here. Like that. Right. And so I stooped to, I mean, it's not even stupid. I just laid out the truth, but he got really freaking butthurt that I brought that up. And he's like, oh, you're comparing us like the KKK. And I was just like, I'm just bringing reality to you. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying what's happening. Like, but you guys just don't want to face reality because you feel you're so scared of it. I don't know.
No, right. No, and then if you really want to get into like, legalities, it's like, the first illegal immigrants were the white people. Like, we never said you could come here. We never said that you could come and take our land and do all that. So it's like, you want to talk, oh, we're legal. Yeah, you're legal based on the laws that your people set up. That'd be like me coming into your house and saying, this is my house because I say so. That's essentially what's going on here. And then because they wiped us out with diseases, and then they were able to take us out, they outnumbered us. But the fact of the matter is, this is still our land. This, and these people, and like, I'm not saying that I want white people to leave. I have a lot of white friends. I love white people, man. I love European culture, man. I love, Italian culture. I love Spanish culture. I love English culture. But what I don't love is conquistador culture. I don't love colonial culture. I don't love the colonization culture. When I look at the American flag and I see 13 stripes representing the 13 colonies, that is a flag to me. I see those red stripes. To me, the red represents Indian bloodshed. That's how I look at it. When I look at the history and I look at what went down, I look at the fact that Thanksgiving is not a holiday all about celebration. It's about they came here and fucking slaughtered us and then ate using the crops that we taught them how to grow. And so it's like so for me, when it's like, oh, stand for the national, like I remember I almost got in a fight with somebody in high school because I wouldn't stand for the national for the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's like, I'm not, and even then I knew something was off, and I didn't even realize I was Native yet. But even then I knew something was off, and I was like, I'm not conforming. I wouldn't stand up for the national anthem. I would take a knee just like the football players were. Because I was like, I knew something was off about this shit. And then now that I realized like everything, I realized like, yeah, man, these are my people. You stole our land, and it's like, so don't tell me that we need to respect that. We need to respect those stars and stripes, and we need to respect the national anthem, which if you read the entire poem that song is based off of, there's a verse in there that's about, slaves, not being able to be saved from the grave because this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. I'm like, yeah, and that's what we sing, at every fucking event. And we're supposed to be proud of that. They teach you to be proud of that. They tell you to make a pledge when you're so young that you don't even know what the fuck a pledge is, and you just blindly say it.
Hey, those are some powerful words, man. I personally like with this. I'm split, man. Like I love the country. I love what we got. It's a good country now. Yeah. And a lot of people live very well, but the history of it is so fucked up, and people want to ignore that history. People want to. I've also noticed people do this. They'll blame all the wrongs that were committed against Native Americans on the English and the French, but it's like, no, the United States itself committed a lot of those wrongs. So it killed a lot of natives itself. Like, look at freaking, what was that guy? Andrew Jackson, yeah. Andrew Jackson, complete and utter bastard, man.
Signed the Indian Removal Act, even though we helped him when he got shot in the arm. We helped. If it weren't for us, he would have lost his arm. He would have been a one-armed president. But because he went out to, I believe it was the Mohawks, and they healed his arm, and he was able to keep his arm. And then he for some reason, as a thank you, he signed the Indian Removal Act. What?
Yeah, complete and utter bastard, man. Like, so yeah, I mean the history's fucked up, and that's what we have to, like, before we can, like, I would say before we can reconcile, be like, hey, this country's like great now, it's perfect. Like, I think there needs to be a big effort to make sure we acknowledge all this past history and rectify things, bring it all out, bring it full circle. Only then can we really move forward, because all like that, and that's what I've noticed with a lot of people, especially a lot of white people. They hate if you bring up race. They get all butthurt about it. They're
Absolutely.
Like, why is it always about race? Like, don't stop. Like, they just want to shove their head into a sand dune and like pretend the problem's not there. And it's like, if you pretend the problem's not there, it will never go away. So right. I mean, you can keep bitching about it, but you're just going to be bitching about it endlessly forever until the end of time, until you actually have the guts to face that shit. And a lot of them don't have the guts to do it.
Right.
My response to people who might like criticize us or say something such as like, why are you bringing up Native issues for? And I was like, well, you know what? I'll stop talking about it when the shit stops happening.
Oh, exactly. Yo, I couldn't have said that better myself, man. Like, that's exactly like, it's not like that we want any special treatment. The thing is that white people get special treatment, and I think we deserve equal treatment in our own land. Like, hey, when we don't want to be fucking put on thrones and pedestals and fucking pampered and shit. We just want to be able to have a little bit more authority and a little bit more freedom in our own land. Like, look, if we go to fucking Europe and we start fucking shit up, and then you want to be like, yo, go back to your land. Then it's like, all right, you know what? Fair enough. But this is our land. We can do whatever the fuck we want here. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that we should be able to just fucking wild the fuck out and
Raise hell.
yeah, exactly. You know,
Yeah.
and just chaos.
Yeah, within reason, right?
Like
But
obviously, but like and we can't. But the thing is, the picture that they paint in schools that we weren't doing that. We were just a bunch of savages, monkeys who were just ripping each other's hearts out and eating them, and it's like no, it's actually not. In fact, if you even read into the Mayan culture about the human sacrifices, movies like Apocalypto do such a terrible job at illustrating it because it's like, dude, you do realize that most of the people in the Mayan, a lot of the people who were sacrificed in the Mayan community were voluntarily sacrificed. Like they wanted to be sacrificed because in the Mayan culture, it's believed that in order to go through heaven before you come back to earth, you have to sacrifice yourself. So they would voluntarily go up and sacrifice themselves. Unlike how they show on Apocalypto where they're being kidnapped and sacrificed. Like the only time people were sacrificed against their will is if they were a prisoner of war.
Right. One thing with the Mexica, because I read this their history book recently based off their indigenous writings. It wasn't by the Spanish accounts, so I thought it was a really good book. But a lot of these sacrifices that they would do, it was like kind of Game of Thrones style. So like a lot of it was if the ruler, the king, right, of the Mexica had a problem, like there were so many descendants of the king. He would have multiple wives and multiple children. Well, sometimes families would plot to take the throne and make sure that whatever kid the king had would succeed over the other ones. So a lot of times there was like backstabbing and infighting. And so sacrifice was used to eliminate like political opponents a lot of the times. Right. It was just Game of Thrones assassination style type of thing, but it was just, I mean, they did the same fucking thing in Europe. They just didn't sacrifice. Right. They just fucking assassinated. It's the same thing.
I would argue that they did sacrifice in Europe. I mean, what the fuck did the Nazis do to the Jewish people? I mean, like, because it's like, anytime that somebody tries to bring up the Mayans sacrifice, I'm a Mayan, so to me it hits home when they try to bring that up. It's like, there's some spirituality behind it. It was believed that if you died naturally in the Mayan community, that you passed through hell for 7 years before you came back to earth. And in order to pass through heaven and have your soul purified, you had to sacrifice yourself. So it's like there was a deeper meaning. It wasn't just like we were a bunch of savages just sacrificing ourselves because we thought it was funny or whatever, because we were just evil. Like, no, it wasn't like that. But it was pretty evil? Taking a bunch of innocent Jewish men, women, and children, putting them in a gas chamber and fucking gassing them to death. That, to me, that's worse. If you ask me personally, I think that's worse than what.
Right. I mean, they were also burning like women at the stake for being witches. We know fucking witches aren't real.
Imagine being tied to a pole and a bunch, like hundreds of people gathered around you, pelting you with rocks.
Yeah. So
like, to me, that's what I'd rather have my heart ripped out than that. Honestly, I'd rather be sacrificed by the Mayans than fucking stoned.
That or burned, man. Burning is like they would burn these people. Like, so But another reason the Mexica would sacrifice, though, was obviously there's a political element, but the other one was the religious element. They thought that at the core of their world, like basically their own important cultural figures had sacrificed themselves so that the world would start anew. They thought that they were under the fifth sun, so basically a fifth new world. And so in order for that to happen, the gods had asked people that like two brave souls to sacrifice themselves to start that. So they thought it was virtuous that for sacrifice was needed to keep the world going. It wasn't people like to paint it as like it's pure evil, like that they just wanted to kill. It's like, no, dude, it's not pure evil. They had their reasons. Like if they were sure, I mean, if they were misguided, I mean, obviously the world didn't end because we ended up sacrificing. But like, I mean, it's just like people had different beliefs back then. That's the thing. And then like everyone wants to lump everybody together. Like the Guachicol is one of my tribes. The Guachicol, they worship Mother Nature. So did we fucking deserve all the bullshit we got? The genocide and the enslavement that the Spanish did to us? Did we deserve any of that shit? We didn't sacrifice anybody. So what the fuck?
Not only that, but then you bring up the Mayans, for example, and it's like you try to group all the Mayans together, like you just said, lumping people together. It's like, dude, the Maya is not a tribe. The Maya is a whole nation of people containing many tribes within the Maya. So it's like, and there was many tribes that were similar to the Guachicol, that we were just nature loving, hippies practically, you know, a lot of, you know, and so it's like, you know, not, it was more the wealthier tribes who were doing the sacrifices. But like if you went into a lot of, you know, regular class Mayan villages, they were living pretty natural lives. They hunted their food, they grew crops, they, you know, they made pottery, they built houses, and it was a pretty normal life, man. It was not, you know, people just like love to go off of movies like Apocalypto and shit and just be like, yeah, that's how it was. So we
Yeah, everybody did that shit. Everybody.
it's like, dude, Apocalypto was a Mel Gibson movie. Like, don't fucking go off that shit. Open a history book.
Right. The only redeeming quality with Apocalypto is that the fighting was pretty entertaining. Other than that,
Well, the only thing I respect about it is just like, at least, you know, because like I noticed that in any video I watch where they, you know, because I've been watching a lot of videos regarding Mayan history, and anytime they start talking about human sacrifice, they always show that scene from the movie, because it's like the only like illustration there is of that. I really wish somebody would make a movie like Apocalypto, but that was historically accurate. I'm trying to figure out how the Spanish people were showing up at the end when the Maya civilization collapsed hundreds of years, like a couple hundred years before Christopher Columbus arrived in the New World. So I'm like, how the hell is Columbus arriving before he's even born? Like, doesn't make any fucking sense. And then the smallpox was already there. There's a scene before in the like where the girl has. I'm like, what the hell is this bullshit, yo? This is a joke.
yeah, that's a lot of inaccuracies right there.
Yeah, there were. I was going to ask you, Claude. That's really cool that a lot of people from, I think you said the Dominican Republic, you or Puerto Rico, really are identifying with their Taino roots. You know.
Well, a lot of Native American people in general here in New York, New Jersey, are kind of reclaiming their roots. You know, both Central American, South American, and yeah, but particularly my group of friends is mostly Taino people. But yeah, just in general here in this area, a lot of people are becoming more in touch with their roots. Even the Black people are becoming like, a lot of my Black friends know which tribes they come from in Africa. So it's kind of like just this area in particular. It's pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, that is because I always like. I think me and Juan can, Juan can both agree on this. Is that the Tainos were the first that like, endured the worst. I think
They
they.
were the
Yeah,
first ones to have met Columbus. The first, I believe it was Puerto Rico that he landed. I can't remember exactly, but it was one of the Caribbean islands. And yeah, it was the Tainos that we were the first ones to be called Indian. So when somebody tries to tell me that we're not American Indian, it's like, actually, the term Indio was first applied to and
yeah.
the Tainos were also in parts of Florida. So there's also that.
I forgot.
Yeah. That's a
Oh,
good point. A lot of ignorance right there when they're like, "Oh yeah, if you weren't in the," everyone like I've seen a lot of people are kind of moving away from this, but when I first started on this native journey, I ran into a lot of idiots that would be like Native American unless you're from the unless you have ancestors that were natives from the continental U.S. only, and I was like, that's extremely fucking stupid.
And then how do you speak for the I don't know if you've mentioned this before on the show. I think you might have, but how do you speak for those native communities that sit on the border of the United States and Mexico? There's many native communities that the border runs through their communities. So how do you speak for those communities? And I didn't even know that communities like that existed until I went on this journey, you know, rediscovering my roots and my history. I didn't even realize that, you know what I mean? Like, that's how ignorant that we were and brainwashed, that we didn't even realize. Like, I had no idea that there was communities that the border runs through. Like, that's crazy to me. And then they want to build a wall.
Yeah. I watched that YouTube video. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, where he can pretty much go from U.S. to Mexico whenever he wants. There's just like a fence there, and all he's got to do is just open up the fence, and he's in Mexico.
Right.
It's really crazy.
I don't think I saw that video. I saw the video that I saw was it was like they were asking a bunch of you know, continental US Native Americans how they felt about immigration, and they were like, immigration? How the hell are we immigrants in our own land? Like, and they're basically most, they were all pretty much saying how they see us as their brothers and sisters, and how it's ridiculous that we should have to show green cards to get past a border that we didn't put there.
That's how I feel with a lot of South and Central America too. Like when you're talking about the American flag, I was thinking about the flags of, Peru, where I'm from, I was born, Bolivia, and like other flags. Like, were they made by the native populace there, or were the flags designed from a criollo or someone like Simon Bolivar, or I think another, what was it? It was for the independence movements. They started creating flags.
Right.
There's an indigenous flag in Peru. I think it's called the Wimpala. It's like a rainbow colored flag. Really interesting.
Really?
Yeah. I think maybe one day they could use that as an actual flag of Bolivia.
I
Um,
I absolutely believe that all the countries here in the Western Hemisphere, their flags and their national anthems, and even the names of the countries should be up to the native people of the country to decide. Like I feel like the Navajos or the Cherokees or the the people of this country should name the country and I mean I feel like we should just call it Turtle Island like they used to,
yeah.
and just let it, and why are we calling it America after some Italian dude? Americo Vespucci, like that's not a native dude. That's Italian.
I'm glad. I wanted to add real quick. I'm glad you watched that video of the Mapuche tribe.
Oh,
Like if
of
they were
course. My
able to
people are
get,
from Chile, so those are
yeah,
my relatives right there too.
that's true. And then they're like fighting right now just to have that territory. Like if they succeed and get to have their own nation, that would, oh my gosh, that would be a game changer for all native tribes across the Americas.
Absolutely.
Really wake the people up.
Yeah,
Um,
man, absolutely.
but I wanted to get on to your life in North Carolina and how that was. You know, um,
Yeah, man.
I know you said you had quite an experience there. Not great. And I've been through North Carolina. I went through Asheville. I think I told you Williamton, a few other small towns. Um, but I can't imagine what it's like maybe growing up there. And you were from, was it Raleigh?
Raleigh.
Raleigh. I always call it Raleigh.
No, it's pronounced Raleigh.
Raleigh, yeah. So how was
Yeah,
that?
man.
Like compared to like going back to New Jersey, like the big city life and living out in like the rural
Yeah.
area of Carolinas. Like I can't imagine like the cultural change
Oh man.
impact it must have on you.
So I would actually consider living in North Carolina again if it weren't for the politics, because I look at when I go back to North Carolina, because it's so rural, I love looking at like the nature and the trees and everything like that. And I'm like, to me, when I look at all that, I'm like, I see my people's land. You know what I mean? As opposed to when I look at like buildings, like here in New York, all the buildings and shit. It's funny because when I look at like pictures of England or videos of England, I notice that the architecture is like strikingly identical. And it all makes sense because this is New England after all. And yeah, so it only makes sense that the architectures are from England, and that explains why the architecture is so similar. So, but in North Carolina, yeah, the culture is very different out there from out here in the city. I mean, the accents are completely different. The food, I mean, out here we consider barbecue, steaks, burgers, and hot dogs on a grill. Out there, barbecue is like fucking pulled pork drenched in vinegar and barbecue sauce. And I'm just like, ugh, yeah, nah, that's not for me. But yeah, definitely, I think the one thing that would prevent me from moving back to North Carolina was the racism that I endured. Um, in the first 5 years of living in Jersey, I never dealt with racism like ever. I mean, I grew up, in the New York City area where, you the native people say nigga around here like it's nothing, and the black people too, and we all say that with each other, like not like a racial term. Like first 5 years of my life before I ever went to North Carolina, I never knew that the word nigga was racist. I always thought it was a term of endearment, like, oh, what's up, my nigga? Until I moved out to North Carolina and I heard people using it racially, and I was like, whoa, and then I realized like I never knew what it meant to be raped. I never even knew like the idea of hating somebody because they were different. You know what I mean? Like just because the color of their skin, I never knew that until I moved out there. And I dealt with a lot. Like, I was always told, go back to your country, go back where you came from. I was told, go home and take a shower. Your skin looks dirty. They would tell me, there were some kids who would say some nasty terroristic shit like, oh, we're gonna kidnap or rape your mother, and then we're gonna go burn your village. Like they would say shit like that to me, and the teachers would turn a blind eye to it. But then if I decided to stand up and start fighting because they were talking about raping my mother, I was getting sent to the I was getting suspended for school for 2 weeks. This kid just said he wanted to rape my mother, so I punched him in the mouth because he threatened to rape my mother. and I'm getting in trouble. I had one time where I was in line at lunch, and this white kid starts leaning on me. I don't know why. I still don't remember why. And I go to him, yo, get the fuck off of me. I'm not gay. And this little bit went to the teacher like, yo, he just called me gay. And the teacher he went to is this woman named Miss Wiggins Price. If you're watching, you're fucking cunt, Miss Wiggins Price. She had an infamy, man. She had an infamy. I swear to God. And it was because of this. It was because of this. So she, pulled me to the office or whatever, and like I had to spend the rest of the day in detention. And then I went home, or I left the school, right? And like my mom would always come to the front of the school, pick me up, and I'm getting in the car with my mom, and this woman comes running to the car like a fucking crazy woman with her arms flailing in the air and everything. I'll never forget this. She's like, wait, wait. She comes to the car and starts telling my mom exactly what happened. He called some kid gay, and here at the school we don't tolerate, disrespect like that or whatever, making fun of the kids like that. And she's like, wait, let me get this straight. This kid was invading his personal space, even made physical contact with him, and my son verbalized his distaste with that, and that he wanted him to get off of him, and just because of his choice of words, he got in trouble. How does that make sense? And then like the teacher kept trying to like argue, and then my mom's from Jersey. She don't play. She was ready to fight her. I'm gonna just say that she was ready to fight her. Like she was ready to jump out the window and fight her. But it was because she realized, she knew like, yo, they're targeting you because you're Hispanic. Because why is the white kid not in trouble? Where is he? There was one time where I was sitting at a lunch table, and I was sitting with this kid who I thought was my friend, and he told me like, yo, you can't sit there. That's James' seat. I'm like, who the fuck is James? I don't give a fuck. I don't see his name on here. I went to the teacher. I was like, yo, are there assigned seats here in this cafeteria? She's like, no. And I was like, hey man, I don't see his name on this seat. I'm sitting here. James comes running up to me and kicks me in my ribs. So I got up and I punched him. I decked him right in his face, and he went flying. He went flying. He was a little skinny dude. Mind you, my dad back in Jersey was a street fighter. So when I was younger, he used to teach me how to fight. And then in middle school, my mom made me start taking boxing. So I knew how to fight. You know what I mean? Like, so I hit this kid once and he went like a little paperweight. Yo, and the teachers come and grab me. And this particular story is crazy because they bring me into the office, right? Mind you, this is an act of self-defense. Like if this were like technically the law states that I shouldn't be getting in any trouble because I was just protecting myself at this point. You know what I mean? This is just survival. But I'm being put into the office with the white principal, with our school resources officer, and an actual cop, an actual city cop who came in. He came in and he has his hand on his gun while they're lecturing me and shit. And I'm sitting there in there fearing for my life because I'm thinking like, dude, it's all a bunch of white people right now. And I'm the little Hispanic boy here. And then like all of this kid's white friends jumped to save him because when they went and asked what happened, they're like, oh, he didn't actually kick him on purpose. He slipped on a quesadilla. And I was like, what? Is that really and they bought that bullshit. They bought that bullshit and I got suspended for 2 weeks. I was like, dude, what is that shit? I couldn't ever wrap my head around it. I mean, there was one time I was walking through the mall with my little sister. She was like 5 years old at the time. So she was 5. I had to be like 13, 14 years old. And we're walking through the mall. I got her by the hand. And there's a mall cop following me around. Just, yeah. With his walkie-talkie, yeah. And I just keep looking at him like, yo, what the fuck you think I'm gonna do? I'm with my little sister. What do you think? I'm gonna fucking rob a store with my little sister? You think I'm gonna cause trouble with a little girl with me? But he sees 2 little Hispanics walking around. He's like, of course we're gonna fuck with these people, you know? And I mean, like, I could go on and on and on for days, like dealing with shit from teachers. I remember one time I had to call my mom about something, and the teacher was like, oh, I don't speak Spanish, but if it sounds like you're yelling at your mom, I'm like, well, what do you mean you don't speak Spanish? You've met my mother before. You know that my mother speaks perfect English. What makes you think that we're going to be speaking Spanish? You know what I mean? I don't even speak Spanish. So like, how you just going to assume that, I have countless stories of people who will just walk up to us and start speaking broken Spanish. I worked at Chipotle, and I remember one time I told, this guy came in and asked for chicken, and he asked for more chicken, but I didn't hear him because the fan was on. It was loud. I said, I'm sorry, what'd you say? And he goes, Mas pollo, por favor. And I just dropped the fucking spoon and looked at him like, dude, really? And I remember he felt stupid after that. He was like, oh shit. Like I was like, yeah, you shouldn't have said that. And I served him whatever, but I was just like, yo, like every day with that shit, it was out there, man. Like it was ridiculous. And then when I heard about shit going on in the news about like Trayvon Martin and things like that went on, I was like, you know, if they do that to a black kid, what do you think they're gonna do to a little Mexican kid, you know? Like, and my mom used to fear for me all the time, and I mean, like, I would walk by certain houses that would have like Confederate flags hanging from them, and you see like these typical white families sitting out on the porch, you know, and you might even see like a shotgun off in the corner, and you see a fucking crazy pit bull dog, like, and that type of shit. You're just like, yo, what if they decide to stick this dog on me right now? Like, they just might. And the fucked up part is that, like, out here, if a hate crime goes down, like, you know, they're on that shit. Out there, if hate crime goes down, they get away with that shit. And that's just scary, man. I mean, there's still KKK rallies out there. I mean, when Trump was running for president, the fucking Trumps. I mean, I was getting told every day, like, yo, pack your bags, get your green card ready. And I'm like, what, to move back to New Jersey? I would love to move back to New Jersey. Like, where are they gonna send me to? Yeah, every day they were like, yo, get ready, you're going back to your country. I'm like, nigga, I am in my country. I was born in New Jersey. The fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? It's like, it's ridiculous to me. I'm like, yo, what green card do I need to show? I'll show you my birth certificate that says that I was born in Holy Name Hospital, Teaneck, New Jersey, March 19th, 1999. I am a true American citizen. I don't need a green card. But that's just the ignorance.
God, man. Jesus. Freaking North Carolina sounds just as bullshit as fucking the southern half of fucking Alabama. That's extremely freaking racist as well, man.
No,
Jesus,
I think you'd be able to relate, you know, being out in Alabama. I've never been to Alabama, but I'm sure it's, you know, being that it's in that area, I'm sure that it's very similar out there.
Yeah, I had a lot of the same type of bullshit. As in, like, not so much the teachers, because
the teachers were fucking nasty, man.
Yeah, like I feel really bad for you with the teachers. Thankfully, my teachers weren't really like racist like that. But it's mostly like the kids. Like, you know, I got those comments all the time, like, "Where's your green card?" or "Go back to where you're from," or like every time there was like a hot new immigration law that was going to pass, like the shit they tried to do in Arizona, but then that got blocked by the judges way back then in like 2011. They were like, are you still going to be here in a couple weeks? You're still going to be here? Like, it just be like stupid shit like that, man. Like, call me taco, burrito, all sorts of shit, just to make me feel like a fucking idiot. Like,
yeah, I've been called nigger before out there, believe it or not. Like, cause because it's so racist out there that they just lump all people in that together. Like, I don't know if you've ever, they've called me, you know, I've been called spick, I've been called wetback and all that, but they've definitely been called me nigger out there before. They've called me all types of crazy shit. That's just like, yeah, man, they're just hateful. It's just very hateful out there. Yeah, you know, it's terrible, man. Well, I remember one time I remember one time, just like I said, like, joking around to some kid that I'm an alien, because that's something I've always said, like, I'm an alien, not as an illegal alien, but like an alien, you know, like from outer space. That's always kind of been like something that I've said, like, joking around, like, oh, I'm not from this planet, yo, I'm a fucking alien, because I've always been very different. And I said that to some kid one time, and he's like, you're an illegal alien.
My God, dude.
And I was just like, dude, first of all, no, the fuck I'm not. I was born in New Jersey. The fuck you mean?
Dude, I can already picture it was some fucking nerdy ass, fucking weird ass white kid with glasses that fucking muttered that, thinking he was cool as shit and clever for saying that shit. Fucking idiot.
No glasses, but yeah, pretty much fat nerdy white kid, freckles. And I thought he was my boy at first, but after that I looked at him differently. I was just like, really, bro? That's how you look at me? Because that's why I even said it to him, because, you know, I thought he was my boy. I was like, yo, I'm an alien. And he's like, an illegal alien. And I was just like, wow, so that's how you look at me. Okay.
Yeah. Shit, dude. I mean, but yeah, this is like this type of racism, though, like, it happens all over this country, and it's really bad. And like, that's another reason why I think it's so important with this whole native identity, is because how, like, obviously, like, races are going to be racist. They're going to hate. But like, how, you know, you have a better leg to stand on with that shit if you're just like, oh, fuck you, I'm Native American. that right there diffuses that all that type of shit about green card and illegal, and it just fucking takes the wind out of their sails. Like they might try to argue with you about it, but hey, I mean, you basically just nuke their entire fucking argument into like smithereens. There's nothing left.
We're the real Americans. We're the real Americans. And it's like, that's what I gotta, you gotta make people understand. It's like I said with my friend before, who he was saying, oh, if you're gonna come into this country, you need to respect the laws and all that. It's like, oh, you mean kind of how you respected our laws when you came into our land when we didn't ask you to? Like, I mean, the Taino people, we when the Christopher Columbus arrived and one of his ships was burning, we saved the people, and some of the people, there weren't enough lifeboats to bring everyone back to Spain, so we took the remains of the boat and we built a shed for them, so they could be safe. And what did they do in return? They began raping our women, they began stealing from us, and they began, and so in exchange we killed them all. And Columbus came back, it was like, what the fuck? And it's like, dude, but these people were trying to fucking rape our women and do all this nasty shit. And then that was when it all started, so it's like, dude, you want to talk about respecting laws, that there's been no respect for the native law since 1492, for the past 500 years. So what the fuck? Talk about we gotta respect. Like, I mean, look, obviously we're not gonna come in here and start shooting shit up and shit like that, but like, shit, man, like I said, we should be able to cross these borders and live our lives the way we should, the way we please. This is our land. In fact, there was a European, I don't remember who said it, man. I gotta figure it out. But when Columbus wanted to do the whole conquest and take over our land, and they were using back then, they were using the whole sacrifice and things like that as justification for them, pillaging our land before they even did it. And but there were Europeans who were saying, if they're doing sacrifices over there in their land, who are we to say that they can't do that? And that's why I don't hate all Europeans, because there were some who were like, wait. Maybe there's something to that we don't know. That's their culture, man. We can't go and penalize them in their land for practicing their culture. That's part of their religious belief. You can't go against that. And they were like, no, and they did it anyway. You know what I mean? But it's like, there were Europeans who were like, let them be them. That might not be the best thing in our view, but maybe they look at things differently. Like, we can't go in there and say you're doing things wrong based on our standards.
Right. Yeah, completely agree, man. Like, I even read up in that Aztec / Mexica history book that the King of Spain actually did it, like European law, they had it in this manner, where Hernan Cortez couldn't just justify just coming in and conquering things. He had to put up a ruse, as in, like, he had to frame it to the King of Spain as in, hey, they asked us to rule for them because they're so incompetent. They had to put up this elaborate lie to sell it, like internationally speaking, like in terms like Europe, because that's how, like, they had these kind of rules, I guess. And so that's how they justified it to, like, the Pope and others. It's like, oh, well, they asked us to come rule because we were so incompetent. They're so incompetent. They asked us, right? We're not conquering anything. It was legit. It was sanctioned. Right. It was fine. It was all good. But yeah. I'll be right back, man.
Sure, no worries. Claude, I was going to ask you a little bit about your DNA test now, and when you exactly took that test. Was it just recently?
Very recently. So later on, we're gonna, I know we're gonna get into what made me, kind of how I came to the realization. But as soon as I came to this realization that I was actually Native American, I immediately was like, get an ancestry test, because I wanted to, I was like, all the proof I need is just when I look at myself in the mirror. But I wanted to be able to have it on paper that I'm Indigenous American. So I went and did that, and I found out that I was in fact 41% Native American, and that and then I was actually 14% African.
Wow.
And yeah, a lot more than I was expecting. I was expecting to get like 2%. I got like 14%. So that was pretty cool. And then the rest of it is European. But then what's crazy about it is that only 35% of it is actually Spanish. There's actually like so calling me a Hispanic is really like retarded, because like I said, 35% of my European blood is Spanish. I have I have French DNA, I have Italian DNA, I have English DNA, I have, I think, Scottish. Um, I gotta look. I know there's some Portuguese in there. Like, I mean, it's like it's such a mixture that it's like, you know, my native DNA is definitely more prominent because, like I say, you know, it's 41%. But similar to the native DNA, it's kind of, you know, mixed up. Like I said, it's about I had written it down. It was like, I believe it was like 15 or 16% Maya. It was about the same percentage Taino. I can't find my phone right now. I had written it down, but I forgot. No, I can't find. Oh wait, here it is. Let me see for a second.
Sure.
So I can't find it. Damn it. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so I'm 15% Mayan. There's 14% indigenous Colombian, which I'm still not entirely sure which tribe that is tied to. Since my grandfather passed away before I came to this realization, I never really got to discuss it with him. But based on where he lived, there's possibility of my grandmother tells me that he used to say that he was from the Inca tribe, but based on where he lived, there was no Incas where he lived. So he either had to have come from the Guane tribe, which very little is known about, or he could have come from the Arawak people, which, being as that my dad comes from the Tainos also, it's like, all right, so that's, you know, I think I'll just go with, you know, Arawak or Inca because those seem to make more sense. And there's more information that I can find on those cultures. The Guane tribe, there's like nothing I can find on it. There's very little I can find on it. There's not a lot being talked to. I do want to find out more about the tribe, you know, in the future and try to see if I can bring more light to it. But as of right now, there's like nothing you can find on there, like nothing at all. They got hit really hard by Columbus.
Yeah.
Columbus would go to their villages, and he would you know, the women were so beautiful that what he would do is he would take a Guane family, and he would, you know, or well, not necessarily him, but like the Spanish people, they would, you know, they would murder the men and the children, and then take the women, rape them, and have them bear a child. And then once the child was born, they would murder the woman so that she couldn't teach them any of the Indian culture. They would be forced to grow up with a Spanish name, speaking Spanish, knowing nothing of their original language and nothing of their original culture. Is pretty sick.
Yeah, it's pretty much
Um,
genocide.
yeah, and then there was about 7% Taino from my dad's side. Um, and then, like I said, then there was little bit of a little bit of Incan from Chile, about 3%, and then there's 2% Navajo, and then the rest, like I said, is the European, the Italian, and all that. But since, you know, the strongest ones for me appear to be the Maya and the Taino, those are kind of the ones that I choose to identify mostly with. Also, the Taino culture in particular is very fascinating to me. I really, you know, look from looking into the Taino culture, it's really fascinating to me because it seems like like, you know, traditional, in what I would consider traditional Indian culture, based on, like, you know, what most people think of when they think of like an American Indian. But their culture seems so peaceful, and based on a lot of the stuff that I already kind of believed, like as far as spirituality, a lot of the stuff that I kind of already believed in, like shamanism and things like that, are like kind of the basis for what they believed in. So I kind of gravitate to that culture more so than I do the Mayans, but I still am learning a lot the Mayans because their culture was amazing, and the Mayans are just fascinating. They were so smart, so brilliant. Like,
Yeah, they
you know,
were.
I'm definitely proud to be a Mayan as well.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I got to double check my ancestry DNA, but yeah, I knew that I had. I think it was Mayan blood from the Yucatan area.
Right.
Yeah, well, in south of Mexico. But yeah, you were talking about like what was going on in Colombia, and just so many natives there were kidnapped and sent to, you know, Cuba and the Dominican Republic to work as slaves. Just really terrible stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know,
No, yeah,
it's pretty bad.
it's pretty crazy what goes on out there.
Yeah, but that's great. You know, at such a young age, you already wanted to take your DNA test, man. Like,
Yeah. And like I said, I'm actually waiting on another one. I did the ancestry DNA test.
yeah,
Um, And now I'm waiting for the MyHeritage DNA test.
Wow, that's pretty great. So I'm sure you'll get some good results too. Like
Yeah.
maybe you'll find out you got more native DNA than the other two.
I'm kind of expecting to, because I've always, I with all the racism I endured, I'm just like, the only like I know that there's some Spanish in my family, especially like when you look at my dad, he looks white, but still, I'm just like, I don't look white. If because maybe in certain pictures and certain lightings I might look white, but if you look at me next to any white person, you can clearly tell that something's different. And so for me, it's like, no, there's gotta, I knew that there was something in there. Like I knew that I was expecting to see at least like 40 to 50% native, because I was like, there has to be. It just has to be.
And that's kind of like when you're talking about the great, the awakening of your identity. Maybe
Right.
that kind of contributed to that. Um, I think you're going to bring up a story about maybe your life, or not your life, but family life in Colombia.
So I wanted to tell a few stories about, like, well, because like I know that like you and Juan have talked about on here, like going to your going to your ancestors and seeing like what things that they did that it came from native culture and not so much European culture. And my grandfather, who just passed away recently, he was very well aware of the fact that he was Native American. He, I don't recall if he ever identified as Hispanic. Because now that I think about it, it's like I actually ever recall him ever saying that he was a Hispanic or a Latino, but I also don't ever recall him saying he was Native American. But that that is something that after he died and after I've started talking about this, all my grandmother and some of his sisters are like, oh no, yeah, he knew, he was well aware that he hated Christopher Columbus. He was very well aware, and a lot of his practices were native practices. Like when we were kids and we would get sick, like most people, a lot of people, like when you get sick, your parents will make you soup, but when they make you soup, it's like some Campbell's chicken noodle soup, you know what I mean, like, and it's not really, it doesn't do anything to you, it just warms you up because you're cold, right? Well, when I would get sick, my grandfather would make a soup, but not no Campbell shit. He would make a homemade soup. And I'm talking, this guy would be boiling chicken bones and be cutting up herbs and ginger roots and all these, things that he would get from nature. And he would put it all in the soup. And the soup would not only taste delicious, but it would heal you. Like you would drink it and then it would make you go to sleep. And then you'd wake up and you'd wake up feeling much better than you did before you went to sleep, because of all the good shit that he put in that soup. And that was, to me, I'm like, that's what the natives did. They would make potions in a sense, from nature. He wasn't putting any like medicine or anything in there. Like, think about it. Why do you think as kids, when our parents try to give us NyQuil, we want to spit it out? And they try to give us cough syrup or cough medicine, we want to spit it out because we know that that's not natural. We know that as young kids, we know that there's something not right about it. And that's why we don't want to swallow it. But then, he makes this soup from all these ingredients that come from nature, and it heals you. There was this another time where I had this infection on my ring finger, and it was this really bad infection where it got like, it got filled with pus, and there was a lot of pressure on the nail, and it really hurt. And I was really young at the time. I was probably like 8 or 9 years old. And I remember we went to the doctor and they were saying, yeah, in order for this to heal, we're going to have to drain the pus from that finger. And I was like, how are we going to do that? And they're like, we're going to have to use a syringe and, prick it and drain out the pus like that. And I was like, oh, are you going to give me like an anesthetic or something, like to numb it? At 8 or 9 years old, I already knew about anesthetics and shit, because I'm like, that sounds crazy. And they're like, nah, it's such a quick procedure. There's really no need for all that. It's gonna be so quick. But I'm like 8 or 9 years old. That shit seems painful as hell to me. And so I started crying, and I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And my grandfather was like, yeah, we'll come back another day. I don't think he's ready to do it today or whatever, right? And he took me home, and he's like, we're not coming back to these fucking people, man. I got you. He took me home, and he took a scallion, a green onion, and he cooked it on the stove with no butter, no oil, nothing. He just cooked it, right? And he cooked it, and then he took it after he cooked it till it was like all mushy and stuff, and like just kind of like, you know, floppy. And he took it and he wrapped it around my finger, and he told me, "This is gonna help your finger." And I remember I looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, what?" And he was like, "Trust me. Go to sleep. Go to bed with that around your finger, and you're gonna see by tomorrow morning your finger's gonna be all better." I woke up the next morning and the I took it off, and I went downstairs and I started playing some video games, and then I felt my fingers starting to get wet, and I looked and all the pus was just oozing out. So then I ran into the bathroom and I started squeezing. It all came out, all just like that. It didn't hurt at all. And after all the pus had finally gotten out, I was able to wash it, and within a couple of days, my finger healed, and it felt so much better. Once all that pus came out, all he had to do was cook an onion. And I was just like, you see, that's the type, and when you look at it, I'm like, that's the type of shit that the European, or not the Europeans, the Native Americans were doing. They knew how to communicate with nature, and they knew how to heal you with nature. It was never, if you got sick in a native community, it was never, oh, here, take these pills and take this medicine and, you know, take all these syrups and all this bullshit. It was like, no, here, eat this radish or something, or eat this tomato, and you're gonna see that you're gonna feel better. And I realized that, you know, when I look back on certain things like that, and I'm like, you know, these were things that he did that these weren't European practices. And especially you look at like your typical Colombian person, it's usually white people. My dad was telling me that, like, dude, most people from Colombia are white, but your grandfather is like, fuck, he looks like an Indian. He told me, and I was like, you know, he does, and he is, and he knew it, He knew all about it. You know, he knew. I forgot what the name of the dance was, but he actually knew how to do this one particular dance that came from the native people of Colombia. I forgot the name of the dance, but he knew how. Him and his sister knew how to do the dance, and so like he was very much in touch with his roots. He knew who he was. He was the original person. He was very much into gardening. He loved nature, you know. So it was like there was a lot of stuff, you know. And he knew he was reading into shamanism. You know, he never actually became a shaman himself, but when he was in Colombia, he knew some of the shamans, and he was learning the ways of, you know, shamanism. And so, you know, I even believe that the night that I kind of came to the realization that I was Native American, I think it was him talking to me like spiritually, like his spirit was communicating with me, kind of waking me up. Like, listen, man, we never got a chance to talk about this while I was alive, but you're not Hispanic. You're Native.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful. You got all those beautiful memories with them, man.
Yeah.
That is all that wisdom, like from nature, from herbs, from plants, like
right.
All that stuff can't be underestimated at all. Like
absolutely not. So. Nature heals. Everything we need comes from nature. That's what I firmly believe, is that everything that we could ever possibly need to live a sustainable life, nature has already given to us. There's no reason to go out into any other planets looking for resources. We got everything we need right here.
Hey, man, and like I related to you when you said that that you already kind of felt a connection to the Taíno culture even before you like put all of this together, you know, because as far as the Guachicil, like I've always been fascinated by nature, by like the wind, by rain, by stuff like that. It makes me feel happy. It makes me feel alive, you know. And the Guachicil, they were nature worshipers, so it's like that fit completely.
You ever ran out in the rain?
Oh yeah, dude. It's awesome,
okay. So
man.
then,
like,
I've done that many times where like I've just like run out like shirtless in the rain and stuff, like barefoot running through the wet grass.
It's awesome. Yeah, man. Like, yeah. So it's just like you find a lot of dots connecting, and what the Guachicils in Mexico told me is that they said it in Spanish, but they said that the blood calls you, basically, like that, and it's the spirit and it's the blood in you that's coming out, and it's part of your identity, and whether you know, obviously you realize it and you go back to it and you recognize it for what it is, and it makes a lot of sense when you do that. So yeah, I could definitely relate with that, with you, with my own ancestors, you know.
Yeah, man.
You missed we're going to talk about, well, we were talking about his DNA test and whatnot. And
yeah, so I heard it. Sorry, but I just, I had something going on, so I couldn't reply right away. but you're taking my heritage. My heritage actually does give more native DNA. Other people criticize it, and they're like, oh well, we think my heritage is flawed because they overestimate native DNA in our eyes. But I mean, every single one of these companies has their own reference populations and their own algorithms. So to just say, oh, one's completely wrong just because I think it's too good to be true, I think is like kind of dumb. Like it's like because they gave Ancestry gave me 50%, my heritage gave me about 69%, and it's just like, I mean, who are you to say that they're completely wrong and that I'm not more native than 50? Like,
and that's actually what made me go with my heritage, because when I did the ancestry test, one thing that I noticed that I found really, really confusing was that I didn't see any indigenous Cuban, but I saw, but my grandfather, who was from Cuba, clearly was not a white man. If you looked at him, I show anybody a picture of him, he's not white. Like this.
Hey, and just for clarification for you haters, we're not talking about, oh well, don't bring up the whole, oh, the Mediterranean skin, oh, they're brown too. It's just like, no, like you can tell if somebody's indigenous. You got the facial
his hair
features,
was like this. You see this hair right here. This is like Indian hair, straight up. Like that's definitely what they call it in the Latino communities, is the, Indian hair.
Yeah.
And I have the exact same hair as my father. He has the same hair as his father. Like the hair genes is very strong. And I'm just like, this is not European hair, like the curls a little bit, but like as far as like the color and the thickness, like no, this is, and my dad has that same, and his dad. So I'm like, no, and then you look at like the nose, and you look at like the feet, like, so I was really surprised to not see any indigenous Cuban. But then what it did tell me was that I had family that lived in Cuba that was from Spain. And I was like, how are they able to figure that out? But then they weren't able to figure out that I had family that lived in that I had a family that lived in New York, or that I had family that lived in Florida, or in, you know what I mean? Like that seems so weird to me. And even all my family agreed that was weird. My dad was like, that's fucking weird, because my dad was not white. So
that
doesn't make sense. That's what made me want to go with my heritage, because they do a higher percentage. I figured, oh well, then maybe maybe they'll be able to find the indigenous Cuban. But I don't know.
If they do, you'll have to tell us. If they find indigenous Cuban, you'll have to tell us, because that'd be really interesting if they do.
Right, because I mean, I feel like at the same time, I feel like maybe Ancestry didn't pick it up because it was probably very diluted over time. Being is that the Tainos got hit really hard by the Europeans, because they were the first to encounter Columbus. So, and it was very popularly believed for a very long time that the Tainos were extinct. So, but it turns out that no, it's not that we're extinct. It's just that there's no full bloods left. All the Tainos are mixed with either European or African ancestry, so no, we're not extinct. We're just mixed, heavily mixed. But then even if it turns out there really is no indigenous Cuban, and my grandfather was a criollo who just somehow happened to have native features for whatever reason, because it was like a miracle of God or whatever. There's still like I said, my grandfather was Colombia, so there's definitely some Arawak blood in there, which the Tainos came from the Arawak people. The language, they spoke Arawak, and the religion was very similar to shamanism, which the Arawaks practiced. So regardless, I know where I come from regardless.
Right, exactly. And like I said, these DNA tests, they're only as good as their algorithms and their reference populations. Right. I mean, if they don't have good Cuban indigenous reference populations, then it's kind of fucked. Like it's not. And
like I said, I feel like a lot of people believe that. I think there's still a lot of people who believe that the indigenous people of the Caribbean, the Taino people, are extinct. And that's just not true, though. It's not true. You go to Colombia, or I'm sorry, not Colombia. You go to Cuba, you see people that look like me. There's a lot of white people there, yeah, but there's people that look like me still out there. They're not black, they're not white.
Yeah.
And I like how you were going to say that you had a family member that always thought that you were all Latinos, and then who was it? I think you said it was your mother or your.
Yeah. So because I wanted to kind of like just if anybody has ever does I'm sure people watching have probably dealt with this, because like when I talk to my mom, my mother is very proud, has always been a very proud Latina. She's always been very proud of where she comes from, and so I feel like we need to figure out a way that we can help these quote unquote Latinos and Latinas realize that you don't have to let go of that pride. You just have to re-educate yourself and realize that you're being prideful of the wrong thing. You're being prideful of the colonization and the, you know, the pillaging of our land and the raping of our culture. You know, you should just be proud of who you are. Like, listen, you're proud of the fact that you look different from these white people that surround us. So
Hey,
when you
that's a
call
really good way to
yourself,
put it.
so exactly, that's what you're proud of. You know that damn well. Because so when you call yourself a Latina, you're not you're discrediting the fact that you look different. You're trying to embrace the fact that your people were colonized. And so that's what I've been trying to explain to her. Because at first, you know, she didn't really, and it's just a matter of the education. Because at first, when I told her we're Native American, she was like, she was looking at me like we're crazy, like I'm crazy. Like, no, we're not. But she thought I meant that we were Cherokee or something like that. And I'm like, well, no, we're not Cherokee, but no, we are Native American. Yeah, no, we're not Lakota. We're not any of these, you know, U.S. tribes. But yes, our people were the indigenous people of the Americas. So, you know, I mean, and I told, I mean, come on, look at Abuelo, look at your dad. You know, he wasn't white. He was, come on, he had red skin, he had black hair. I mean, come on, that wasn't a white man.
Hey, that's a really good way to put it. I think if you don't mind, I'm gonna copy that argument. The whole like
Nah,
the
man, feel
whole
free.
thank you, man. Yeah, but yeah, that whole like you know Latino pride, because I've seen a lot of people that are proud to be Latino or Hispanic, and I think I might tackle it the way you tackled it right there, because it's a really good argument. It's like, what exactly you're proud of? It's because you look different from a white person, right? So it's like, so then
So then why
it just
identify
makes
yourself
no
as a white
sense. Yeah,
person?
yeah, it makes no sense. You're
Hispanic and
essentially,
Latino
yeah,
just means white. It just means that
exactly. It's
you're
like,
from Spain or from the southern part of Europe. But you know, yeah, no,
right.
exactly. To call yourself a Latino is just like, you know, you're doing you're saying that you're trying to say that you're proud. And that's why I was saying before, I don't remember if we were recording this yet or not, but I was saying before that I feel like a more appropriate term for native people who are from Latin America would be to call themselves a nativo instead of a
Yeah,
Latino, because nativo, which is just the Spanish word for native, you're not, if anything, you know, you're calling yourself nativo. And you know, if you were to tell somebody here, if I tell somebody here, oh, I'm nativo, they'll be like, oh, okay, you're Native American, but then you're from South America, essentially, because you're saying it in Spanish. You're from Latin America. And then in Portuguese, it's the same word. I think it might be pronounced a little bit differently, but it's spelled the exact same way, nativo. So it would work for the Brazilians too. Basically, anybody that's from Latin America is a nativo, or native people from Latin America would be nativos. And I feel like I feel like that's a term that we should start incorporating, you know, just to just, you know, it makes a lot more sense than Latino, in my opinion, because it's like we should be proud of the fact of who we are. I mean, like, look, me, I'll still tell people I'm Cuban, I'm Colombian, I'm,
yeah.
you know, I'm Honduran, and I'm Chileno. I'm not gonna say, you know, like start saying, you know, that I'm Cherokee or something like that, or that I'm a tribe that I'm not. But you gotta understand that it's like you can say that you're proud. Like I have this friend of mine who she's Cuban and she's a very proud Cuban, but this woman is white. I mean, when I first met her, I thought she was white, but she's Cuban. Like her parents are from Cuba and she's very proud Cuban. She practices a lot of the culture, but a lot of the culture is based off of Spanish culture. And that's cool. That's cool. Don't get me wrong. You know, she's a good human being. She's a good person, but it's like, you got to understand that it's a difference. It's just like out here in the United States, you have black people, you have white people, you have people, and they all practice different cultures. It's the same thing in our Latin American countries. You know, it's like you tell, and that's why it's very important to emphasize the fact that it's like when you tell somebody like me, go back to your country, let's just, you know, I was born in New Jersey, but let's just say I was born in Cuba. You know, I mean, Cuba is run by a white dictator government. You know, I mean, Castro was brought into power by Che Guevara, a Spanish guy. You know, like it's white colonial government. So it's like even if I were to be in Cuba, I'd be dealing with the same problems, if not 10 times worse. Same thing in Mexico. You know, I mean, I know you guys have talked about how if you leave the communities, you're all of a sudden you're no longer indigenous. So it's like you got to understand when you tell us go back to your country, it's like it's, you know, in those lands you pretty much get told the same thing. You pretty much, it's pretty much the same idea, like get out of here, you're not wanted here in our own lands, and that's why they flee to the United States. So it's, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I believe in change, and I think with more people realizing, you know, what we do, then that the tide can turn for the better for us, you know. But
Right.
before we wanted to finish up here, I know you're going to talk about going to a reservation maybe later on in the future.
So yeah, like I mentioned before that I actually found that there actually is 2% Navajo in my DNA. So I don't plan on becoming enrolled because I don't even think that's enough to qualify blood quantum unless they accept the 41%. Considering only 2% of that 41 is Navajo, I don't think they accept it. But that's not what my goal is. My goal is kind of just to go, since that's right here and that's technically like in my backyard, since that's in the United States and I don't have a passport, I can't travel just yet. And I have some friends out in Utah where where part of the Navajo Nation is. I would like to go out to the Navajo Nation and, kind of just learn about the culture, learn, of the history, and, learn a little bit. And that will kind of like be my first step to learning the rest of my heritage. I would love to learn about the Mayans. I would love to learn about the Taínos, the Incas, and any tribes that they may be connected to. So, that would definitely, I would love for that to be my first start. I would love to go see the Navajos, learn their ways, and, just immerse myself in that culture. Considering my whole life, I've always been proud of who I am, for the most part anyway. And now it's just, now that I know who I really am, it's like I know everything about my Spanish culture and Spanish, heritage. But now I would love to know about the people who were here before 1492, because you got to think, there was life going on before 1492. Or in the history book, that's when the history starts here. But we go back way deeper than that, and there was, very advanced tribes and civilizations that did really great things. I mean, the Mayans invented the concept of the number zero. And I never even realized that in the Roman numerology, there is no zero. I didn't realize that until recently when I found out that the Mayans invented the concept of the number zero. Like when you reach 10 in the Roman numerology, it turns into an X, but there's no zero. We created that concept. So it's like, you gotta think, man. We had some incredible shit going on here prior to 1492. So we need to start, looking at that a little more.
Definitely some more recognition would be very pleased.
Yeah, for sure, man. All that stuff is overlooked. Like we're just painted to be a bunch of savages that were stupid as hell and didn't contribute anything, and that we needed like everything that we was from Europe, and that's why.
Right. No, it's ridiculous, man. It's like, don't get me wrong. There's some awesome stuff that has come from Europe.
Oh yeah.
I love Italian culture. I love, and I actually did find some Italian in my DNA, so that's pretty cool. But I love Italian culture. In fact, I love Spanish culture. I love Spanish music. I love, Spanish. I love reading about like I'm a guitarist, so and the guitar kind of found its popularity in Spain. It kind of originated in Spain. So and I feel like it actually is the Spanish in me that gravitated to the guitar. So it's like but it's like there, it's not like I completely want to completely reject the Spanish or the European DNA, but it's like you got to keep in mind that for the past 22 years I've been repressing my native heritage. So it's not that I want to repress my Spanish heritage, but it's like, okay, we get it, but I don't even look white. If I were to go to Spain, they wouldn't be like, oh, Claudio, they'd be like, oh, this fucking guy, fucking savage, don't even speak our language properly.
Yeah, no, exactly, man. Like for example, like there's plenty of European things that I admire in terms of like a lot of their warfare and their armor, like type of stuff, like full plate armor. I want to go buy full plate armor. Like it would cost like $5,000 to $8,000, but it's absolutely beautiful. It's like a logical marvel. Like if you full plate armor back then, you're almost like invincible. Like it'd be really hard to kill you. I mean, I want to buy full plate armor. That's probably a little bit of the Spaniard or European that I got too. But I mean, nothing wrong with liking that side as well in certain respects, But the thing I tell people, because they always hear about this, is like I'm not rejecting everything with the Spanish. I'm just saying I racially identify with what I look like and what I have experienced, and that's the Native American side, and that's what speaks to me more. There's certain things with the European that I like I said, like that like the armor, the weaponry, swords, all that. Like I
Right.
like that type of history and all that shit. So I'm gonna embrace that, sure. But that doesn't
Yeah,
mean
of
I'm gonna go
course.
around saying I'm a white guy. No, like
Well, you gotta look at who you are. I mean, it's like we there's plenty of black people who have white heritage, but they don't look black. And while maybe they know some of their European culture and they might be proud of it, it's like, but what are you at the end of the day? It's like, if what do you look like? And so at the end of the day, it's like, well, not only what do we look like, but where are we? We're not in Spain. And it's like, so it's cool to learn about Spain, but why do we worship Spanish culture when we're not in Spain? We're here in America. We're in our land. So why is our culture invisible? Why is our culture looked down upon? Why is our culture like, our voices are invisible? Everything about us is just like, we're nobodies. But this is our land. It's like, it's unfair to me. We need to have a wider voice, a louder voice, and we need our culture needs to be, more visible. I feel like our
Completely agree.
flag should incorporate more of our symbolism, rather than just having the stars and stripes that just represent, Indian bloodshed, like I said before. We need to have our culture, needs to be stronger. Our people need to be strong. Because if you ask me what I wanted to mention before when we were talking about, me living out here in New Jersey, is like I said, I go out here in North Bergen. I was walking out in the park today, and all I see around me are Native Americans. So when I go and I see the demographics, it's mostly white. I'm like, how is this possible? They say that we're the minority, and I'm just like, I don't even think that's true. I think we're the majority, because based on what I've seen in my life, I've seen more Native American people out here than I've seen white people. But it's just, the problem is that these Native American people are identifying as white on these papers. So the numbers become distorted, and then it fucks things up in politics. And I feel like, a lot of people think that, oh, you're just trying to pretend to be Native American so you can gain benefits. And I tell you, I don't give a fuck about a benefit, man. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't need
well,
them.
what
I don't.
benefits? That's the thing. That's what kills me. It's like what benefits
That's
do we
another
gain?
thing, man. Like, I know some people who do get Native American benefits, and they're like, yo, I wipe my ass with those fucking checks. They they don't do shit. They buy me sandwiches from McDonald's. Like, those checks are nothing. And it's like, but for me, it's like, I don't even need it. I live in a nice house. My family takes care of me. Um I don't need any benefits. What I'm looking for is more political strength with our people. I feel like if we were to reestablish ourselves as the majority rather than just, hiding, then there would be a lot more consideration for immigration laws. There would be a lot more consideration, there would be a lot more respect, considering that we're the majority. And I feel like, we need to get more, more people that look like us into positions of power, in Congress. There needs to be more people, and like, I'm not saying that we should like rebel, and just like try to take down the colonial system, because obviously, they got the military and that's just not going to work. But I think there's a peaceful way that we can go about not necessarily overthrowing the government, but changing it so that in the future, when you come to America, like, let's actually make America great again. When was America great, though? Because when Donald Trump says that, he's referring to when we were all in chains. When I say make America great again, I'm referring to make America as great as it was up until 1492.
Yeah.
Because up until 1492, America was actually pretty great. So that's why I say there is such thing as a make America great again. It's just a matter of at what point was America great? And if you ask me what that point was, I'll tell you, up until 1492.
Hell yeah, man. That's pretty beautiful right there. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, there was there was a video. I don't know if you guys have seen it, of it went down. It was during on Indigenous Peoples Day about a year or two ago, and this Native American man had kind of like approached this group of Trump supporters who were kind of like causing ruckus, and he was singing a spiritual chant, while the Native American boy or the white boy kind of just like stared him down or whatever. And at the end, when everything was all over, he said, "Hey, relatives, let's make America great. Let's actually do that." And that really stuck with me, because I was like, word, this is our land after all. And look at the bullshit that's going on in this land. People just hate each other just because we look different. And it's what's crazy that if you know your science, you know that skin color is just a matter of how much exposure you get to the sun. You know, people who have more exposure to the sun become darker because you need that melanin to protect you from the UV rays from the sun. Whereas in Europe, the sun isn't as strong. The UV rays aren't as strong, and therefore people who are highly melanated out in Europe, they develop vitamin D deficiencies because they don't get enough vitamin D, and that's why through evolution they shed their melanin, become white, so that they can get the vitamin D that they need. But then that's why a white person, if they go to Africa, they burn up in those hot UV rays. So it's all a matter of just knowing that education. You're no different if just because the color of your skin, it doesn't even make you better. Because then one might even be like, oh, so technically being black is better then because that means you're protected more from the sun. It's like not necessarily, because like I said, if you're black and you decide you want to live in England, you want to move up north, you want to move out to Canada, you're gonna that melanin is not gonna be good. You're gonna have to take supplement pills living out there because you don't have the ideal skin to live in colder climates. But that's just how nature works. So
Yeah.
you know,
It's a good way to look at it. I was going to say I agree with you a lot, Claude, on what you said about having more political power for us, Native people. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day we'd get the power to go through any country we want to the Americas.
I feel like we should have that exception, man. Like look, if you look like us, we should, maybe they can give us like a green bracelet or something that can identify the fact that we're indigenous. And it's like, look, man, if you got that green bracelet, you shouldn't have to show ID or anything. You should be able to hop the border, run circles around that fucking border, all you want. We were here first. It's kind of like how in certain jobs, like I heard of a dude who like basically they said they made it a rule that you're not allowed to smoke on your lunch break. You're not allowed to smoke cigarettes on your lunch break. But for the people who've been working there for a very long time before that law or that rule was put into place, they get an exception because they're veterans, essentially. You know what I mean? So the way I look at it is like we should have that exception of showing our identification, considering we've been here for thousands of years and these white people have only been here for about 500. So it's like, you see what I mean? So it's like people who were working at that job before they made that rule, they get to still smoke during the lunch break. People who came in after, they don't get that rule, or they have to follow that rule. So that's how it should be for us. We people who were here before colonization should be able to travel freely, and people who come here after, the immigrants, they should be the ones who have to show their identifications.
Maybe one day, man. I mean, the more like people to Juan and I and you can reach out to and realize the ultimate goal is to have other Native people and so-called Hispanics, Latinos, or most of them that are actually Native, getting their attention and just bringing out this really I don't know, controversial subject to them into the light. Because like you said, like talking about Native Americans too, Latinos, like people that are very prideful, is controversial to them,
Yeah.
So bringing this
It is, because it's
You can
almost like
feel the drama, but yeah, you can feel the blood.
It's like you're and I understand it, because it's like you're trying to it's almost be like trying to tell a black person, like they look at it like you're trying to tell a black person like you're not black. But it's like in reality, it's actually like the exact opposite. It's like my friend who I mentioned before, who swore he was Chinese and not black, and even though he was black, clearly it's like, okay, dude, you could have been born in China, that's cool and all, but you're still black. Like your people came from Africa, and that's essentially what I'm trying to. What we're trying to do here is be like, okay, that's cool. You can be Mexican, you can be Colombian, but you're native.
Exactly, man.
And it's the same thing, it's the same thing. One thing I wanted to mention on here is that, it's the same thing for the black people. For the black people, the thing is that if you see like a black Dominican, most people won't assume he's a Hispanic or a Latino. They'll assume he's black, which he is. So, it's not as big a problem, but with them it is too. Because like I said, you have black Dominicans or black Puerto Ricans who'll be like, oh, I'm not black, I'm Dominican, I'm Puerto Rican. And it's like, no, that's not a race. That's a nationality. And then, if you want to be proud to be from Dominican Republic or from Puerto Rico, that's cool. You can be proud of that, but you're still black. You have to accept that. You have to accept that. Just like we have to accept that we're Native American, and that's kind of what all of this is all about.
Exactly. And one thing I've told Marcus before is, and he seems to share my vision here, is our whole goal. Because some people like attack us. They're like, "Oh, you guys want to be in charge, like of everything." Like whenever it comes to like getting people to wake up to the
Which we
identity, and
should
it's
be
just like,
if we're being real. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion, though. We're going.
I don't even come at it from that angle though. I just say that, hey, look, like my whole goal is to get people to wake up and realize they're native, and then personally, I don't like I take power or anything. It's just I want to give the power to people, and then they can run with it. If they want to put me in charge, they want to put Marcus in charge. Great. If they don't, like that, the whole purpose is to get the power into our people's hands.
Right.
That's the whole reason why we're doing this.
Oh, well, that's what I mean when I say I feel like we should. I don't mean we as in we, you, me, and Marcus. I mean we as in Native American people.
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I say we should be in charge. Like, because right now we're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So exactly, man.
Not.
Like,
no,
like
I don't want to.
the...
Trust me, I don't want to run this country, man. I want to fucking sing. I want to sing rock music. I don't want to. I don't want to be a politician, man.
Same thing. It'd be like a lot of stress, man. But yeah, that's the whole purpose. Because people like they'll attack me and Marcus from that angle, and it's like, no, the only reason we're doing this is just to get more political power to our people as well, exactly, in addition to the identity, right? But a lot of it is there's a lot of political power if we finally embrace what we are. So that's the whole aim of this channel, is to wake people up.
Right, and we shouldn't look at as a Cherokee and as a Taino as two different people. We shouldn't look at as a Mayan and a Navajo as two different people. Like, those are the same race, the same way, like the way you wouldn't look at as like a Nigerian or a Swahili. You wouldn't look at them as two different, people, maybe two different cultures. Sure. Yeah, because the Mayan culture is very different from the Navajo culture. The Taino culture is very different from the Cherokee culture. All that is true. But doesn't change what we look like. Doesn't change who we are. In many cases, like, there are many similarities between the cultures. Like I said, the Taino culture is very, very traditional. I mean, with the feathers and with the, the plant medicines and the shamans. There's many things the Tainos, practice that is very, what almost quote unquote stereotypical, of the native, culture. But it's beautiful culture though. It's really beautiful culture that, gets made fun of and mocked when you see like teams like the Redskins and the Braves and the Indians, and they come out with with Chief Wahoo, and they come out doing, making fun of us, and, they come out with the feathers and they go, whoa, 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 and they do all that bullshit. It's like, they really make a big mockery of it. And it's like, all that's got to stop. That's all that's really got to stop.
I hate it when non-natives do that.
Oh man, like the Redskins and the Braves and all those ridiculous sports teams names, like it's just like, and they do that with black people too. They love to take the culture and adopt the culture, but then the people who created the culture get treated like shit.
Right. They going with us. They love our freaking food, but they hate us. They hate us.
Oh yeah, so many white people love tacos and burritos and shit. And it's like, but then you hate the people who make them. Like, people will make fun of me being like, oh, what you gonna have for dinner tonight? Tacos? And it's like, actually, I probably am gonna have tacos. But what's crazy is that your mom's probably gonna take you to Taco Bell tonight too. So, but the difference is that I'm eating real tacos. You're gonna eat some of that bullshit that's gonna have you sitting on the toilet later.
Yeah, exactly. Like, God, man. But no, man, it was great to have this conversation with you, man. I think people are gonna really like this podcast. It was good to have you on. You have a lot of good pearls of wisdom there, man. Like I said, that especially that whole Latino thing. Like, what are you proud of? It's because of how you look, not white. That's a good one, man. I hadn't fucking thought about it like that. So a lot of pearls of wisdom. I appreciate
that, man, for real.
Yeah, thank you, Claude.
And I appreciate you guys for allowing me to have the opportunity to come on here and kind of, voice what I had to say. Because ever since I discovered this, I was like, there's definitely some topics that I wanted to kind of throw in, because, I just wanted to kind of get the, throw in my little ingredients to stir the pot, and just keep, we got to just keep this conversation going for until, people understand, like, who we are. And I feel like, not only that, but if we start, unifying ourselves with all the natives, and then, our power becomes stronger, I feel like that will eventually lead to the solution of many other bigger problems that we're facing on a global scale, like the like the climate change with all the plastic in the ocean. I feel like if you had a lot more native and indigenous people in charge, and a lot of the tribes who care a lot about nature, they will definitely make that a main priority. They're not going to be focusing on all this bullshit that our current government is focused on. They're gonna, like, because if you ask me, you know we should be putting a lot of our taxpayer dollars into cleaning up the ocean, because I mean it's just terrible what's going on. I mean, Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean drinking water, and there's certain things like that. I mean, you have the forest fires in California. Nature is crying. I mean, if you've seen what polar bears are looking like right now, I mean, they're skinny, bone. I mean, it's terrible. Red wolves are endangered. I mean, nature is crying right now, and our Mother Earth is in so much pain. There's a great video from the late great Russell Means, where he's talking about how the sooner that we accept the fact that our Mother Earth is a living being, the sooner we'll see things start to become better. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he had a lot of great views, and I just think that that's why if we had a lot more political power, you would see things like that happen. Because like I said before, I don't think I said this on camera, but I said before that I really wish that before he died, that Russell Means could have had an opportunity to have run for president, because I feel like if he would have put in a lot of his views into the government, it would have changed a lot of things for the better. And I feel like even though he's not with us anymore, you still have many other wise natives who would make great candidates. And hell, maybe even change the presidential system. Maybe just create a whole new system that works better, that gives more people a voice, and not necessarily relying on one person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One
Yeah, I
person
agree,
to make
man.
all the decisions. You should have a group of people. There should be, like, in my opinion, I think instead of having one president, I think there should be 4 leaders, and each one should have like different tasks and different jobs, and each one should be, they should make their decisions as a group rather than just having one person that makes a decision. I mean, at least it's a step. At least it's a step up from a monarchy. At least it's not absolute power, but still, it's like kind of similar, if we're being real, especially since it was established by the same people who came from monarchies. Our democratic system was put in place by English people who were descendants of Royal England.
Well, I
Yep,
think
no, that's true.
Russell also said that democracy originated in the U.S., like from natives before, like any immigration even came here.
Yeah.
Um,
No, at first when they first arrived here, I mean, it was very much similar to how it was in England. I mean, with the
yeah,
it was, you were essentially in England when you were in this land. It was, and you were, if you committed any crimes, I believe that you would even be sent to England to be punished by the king. I might be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it worked. Like it was basically England. You walked around, you saw British flags hanging around, you saw the red coats, and it was just, it was basically new. It was new. That's why this area, this section of land, is called New England. And you have places like New Jersey and New York. It's basically just another,
it's true. For you to think of it that way. But Claude, I do appreciate you coming on, man. Me and Juancho are really happy to have this really insightful discussion. And I learned a lot. You're a really interesting guy, man. So
Yeah, for sure.
That, man.
yeah. So we'll definitely, maybe in the future, we can talk more and have another podcast sometime soon.
Oh yeah, man. I'd definitely be down to come back on here again, man. I had a lot of
Hell
fun
yeah.
having this discussion with you guys. I love what you guys are doing. Definitely keep it up, because I definitely would love to see this grow and see more and more people kind of wake up and just realize, like, look, we got to snap out of this colonial mindset and remember who we are and start embracing who we are, being proud.
Yep, we will. It's a process.
For
It's
sure.
coming along, man.
Coming
But
along, man.
I wanted to say to
Hey, man.
our fans out
Little
there,
by little.
yeah, little by little. That's right. But to y'all that was watching, thank you so much for coming on to watch our video. And everybody out there, stay tuned, and we'll talk to y'all next time.